History was not a timeline. History was a fever dream. A messy loading screen where civilizations spawned in places no one asked for and then vanished like they got kicked from the server. Some ancient cultures survived ice ages. Some survived invasions. Some survived their own terrible architects. Others survived by pure accident. Like they glitched into existence and the universe forgot to patch them out. Imagine opening a map and finding entire cities underground. Imagine a civilization that built a mega temple before they figured out farming. Imagine people who sailed across the Pacific with nothing but stars and stubborn confidence. Imagine early engineers who made drainage systems so advanced that modern cities look like toddlers with plastic buckets. Every time you think ancient people were simple, you find something that makes you question if humanity peaked 10,000 years ago. So today we are diving into the 22 ancient civilizations that should not have existed. Not because they were weak, not because they were strange, but because the timeline makes no sense. This list is going to offend history class. It is going to insult every museum on Earth, and it might even cause your brain to uninstall itself. If you are ready to question everything you learned about the ancient world, then welcome. Take a seat. Hold your sanity, because things are about to get weird. 1. The people who built cities under the desert? Prepare your brain, because the first civilization did not live on land. They lived under it. Deep below the Turkish desert sits Derinkuyu, an ancient underground city that looks like someone played Minecraft on survival mode and never came back up. These people carved out tunnels, chambers, vent shafts, entire neighborhoods, 8 floors down, all by hand. No drills, no power tools, just stone, sweat, and suspicious determination. They built wine rooms, storage rooms, churches, schools, and a massive rolling stone door that looks like the world's first security system. Modern people panic when the Wi-Fi drops. These people lived underground with nothing but torches and confidence. Archaeologists still cannot explain why they did this. Invaders, climate, religious groups. Introverts avoiding small talk, pick one. It all works? Derinkuyu is proof that ancient humanity did not wait for permission. They saw the desert, said no thanks, and moved the entire city downstairs like it was a basement upgrade. 2. The Indus Valley people who invented city planning before anyone knew what a plan was. Welcome to the Indus Valley. A civilization so ahead of its time that modern cities still feel like broken beta versions compared to them. While the rest of the world was busy throwing mud at each other, the Indus people were installing drainage systems. Actual clean drainage. With angled slopes, access points, covered streets, even standardized brick sizes. Meanwhile, some cities today cannot handle 10 minutes of rain without turning into swimming pools. Indus Valley said, skill issue. They had grid-based streets, public baths, ventilation, silos, warehouses, and absolutely zero chaos scribbled into their planning. The weirdest part, they left behind almost no warfare evidence. No kings, no tyrants, no giant statues of some royal dude flexing. They just existed, efficient, organized, chill. Then one day they vanished, not destroyed, not conquered, just gone, like they turned off the lights and dipped. A civilization that mastered urban planning before governments invented incompetence. Respect. THREE. The Norte Chico who built skyscraper-shaped pyramids without pottery. Now this one is pure chaos. Imagine a civilization that said, we will build massive architectural projects. Then someone asks, do we have pottery? And they say, what is pottery? Welcome to Norte Chico, oldest in the Americas. Zero ceramics, zero metallurgy, zero warfare scars. But giant pyramids that look like ancient office towers. Their cities had plazas, sunken amphitheaters, massive platforms, and an urban layout that suggests they were quietly competing with Egypt before Egypt even warmed up. They built these structures using woven baskets full of rocks. This was their construction tech, basket engineering. Yet somehow the buildings still stand. They also developed a proto-accounting system made of knotted strings. Imagine inventing spreadsheets without inventing dishes. Norte Chico is the civilization that should not exist. Too early, too advanced, too calm. It is like the ancient world accidentally generated a peaceful architect society as a joke. FOUR. The Sumerians who speedrun civilization like it was a challenge. Here is the wild part. The world did not slowly grow into civilization. It did not ease into writing and laws and cities. No. Sumerians woke up one morning and said, "Let us invent everything. Writing, check. Math, check. Laws, check. Taxes, unfortunately, check." They created cuneiform. They built the first cities. They invented irrigation. They invented government. They invented the zodiac. They even invented the concept of time, which means Sumerians are responsible for school schedules and 9-to-5 routines. So thanks for that. They wrote epic poems longer than your entire attention span. They made ziggurats that looked like staircases to heaven. And they did all this while the rest of humanity was still figuring out which berries were not poisonous. Sumer was the first civilization to look at the world and say, "We can fix this." And humanity has been trying to keep up ever since. 5. The Minoans, who built a civilization based entirely on vibes, bulls, and questionable architecture. The Minoans did not have a normal culture. They had a fever dream. They lived on Crete, built giant palaces, painted murals of acrobats flying over bulls, and invented plumbing because apparently bulls were not chaotic enough. The palace of Knossos had hundreds of rooms, staircases going nowhere, corridors looping like ancient mazes, everything bright and colorful, like a Mediterranean amusement park run by architects with too much free time. Their artwork shows women with wasp waists, men doing flips over massive bulls, priests wearing robes that look like fantasy cosplay. If TikTok existed back then, the Minoans would have dominated it. And of course the Minotaur myth came from them. A giant bull human creature living in a maze. You know, culture is doing something suspicious when even their myths sound like they were written during a heat stroke. The Minoans had trade networks, advanced ships, a writing system we still cannot read, and absolutely no chill. Then a volcanic eruption hit. And like every civilization that flew too close to coolness, they disappeared. 6. The Olmecs, who built giant heads just to confuse future archaeologists. Let us talk about the Olmecs. The ancient civilization that carved colossal stone heads weighing tons, with perfect facial features, perfect helmets, perfect everything, and then scattered them around the jungle like Easter eggs. No written records, no explanations, no instruction manual for why they made giant sculptures that look like NFL players. They lived in swamps, built pyramids, invented early Mesoamerican religion, possibly invented the first ball game where losing may or may not have ended badly, all while dragging 30-ton boulders across miles of terrain. Imagine seeing a civilization that had no wheels but looked you in the face and said, "Yes, we will move this rock." Do not ask how. Some think the heads represent rulers. Some think athletes. Some think deities. But honestly, the most logical answer is that the Olmecs just wanted future historians to suffer. And they succeeded. 7. The Aksumites, who built obelisks like they were collecting height achievements. Imagine waking up in ancient East Africa. You walk outside, and the first thing you see is a stone skyscraper, perfectly carved, perfectly balanced, pointing into the sky like someone rage-clicked the increase height button. Welcome to Aksum, a kingdom that looked at stone and said, "Make it taller," then kept going. Some of their stelae are 70 feet tall, carved from single blocks of granite dragged miles. Raised upright, no cranes, no machines, no logic. If you ask archaeologists how they did it, they give you the same face people make when trying to explain taxes. No idea. Pure mystery. The Aksumites were built different. They traded with Rome, India, Persia. They minted their own coins, adopted Christianity early, and built an empire in a region most historians did not expect a superpower to appear. Aksum was that one player on the map nobody notices until they suddenly own half the coastline. EIGHT. The Phoenicians, who invented the alphabet because they were tired of drawing squiggly shapes. The Phoenicians were traders, sailors, dealers. The ocean was their road. The world was their marketplace, and complex writing systems were not invited. Cuneiform was too complicated, hieroglyphs were too dramatic. So the Phoenicians said enough and invented the alphabet. Simple, efficient, no bird drawings, no cow heads. Just sounds as symbols. The entire modern world writes the way it does because a bunch of ancient sailors wanted faster paperwork. They founded Carthage, ruled the Mediterranean shipping lanes, built ships that turned them into the Amazon prime of antiquity, Except their customer service was probably better. Their purple dye was so expensive that royalty fought for it. One tiny vial could cost an empire. It was the Gucci of the ancient world. Yet despite all their success, they never bragged. They just quietly rewrote human communication while avoiding wars until Rome forced them into one. Phoenicians did not want drama. They wanted trade routes and vowels. 9. The Nabateans who built a canyon city like it was secret downloadable content. Petra is not a city. It is a flex. It is ancient architectural disrespect. A sandstone canyon carved so perfectly that people today still think aliens did it. The Nabateans looked at cliffs and said, door, then carved one. And then carved 1,000 more, temples, tombs, water channels, massive facades. All cut straight into the rock with surgical precision. Their water systems were so advanced that the desert literally could not kill them. They rerouted floods, stored water, trapped moisture from the air, and built an oasis city that should not have been possible. Petra was like an ancient VIP club, hidden, protected, only accessible if you knew the secret canyon corridor just wide enough for a horse. They controlled the spice trade, became rich enough to make gold look common, and then vanished when Rome got jealous. The Nabateans were the ancient world's best architects, and they never left a manual. 10. The Hittites who accidentally became a superpower. The Hittites were not supposed to be world leaders. They were supposed to be a small mountain tribe minding their own business. But then they discovered iron, and everything went off script. While everyone else swung bronze weapons that bent like cheap spoons, the Hittites pulled up with iron swords that did not care about your feelings. Their armies rolled through Anatolia like they had cheat codes. They fought Egypt at the Battle of Kadesh, the largest chariot battle in history, 40,000 horses, 2 empires, and one very confused future world. Then they did something outrageous. They made the first known peace treaty. In writing, signed by both sides, displayed in museums like ancient paperwork flexing. But here's the part that breaks logic. They mastered iron working but never used it to build giant monuments. Never bragged, never turned into flashy architects. The Hittites were like the person who is secretly amazing at everything but still arrives at parties quietly with no announcement. 11. The builders of Göbekli Tepe who invented religion before farming. If you think humanity followed a logical progression, Göbekli Tepe will slap that idea out of your head. This site is 12,000 years old, older than writing, older than pottery, older than agriculture, but filled with massive carved pillars arranged in circles like ancient stone cathedrals. The people who built it were hunter-gatherers, nomads, you know? The type who move around and do not build giant ceremonial monuments for fun, and yet here it is. Huge T-shaped pillars, engravings of animals, perfect alignments. Labor organization that should not exist until farming appears. Göbekli Tepe is like discovering someone built the Eiffel Tower during the Stone Age. It should not be there. It should not be possible. It is the historical version of finding a smartphone in the sand. Even stranger. After building it, people buried it deliberately, covered it in soil, as if erasing the evidence of their own genius. Göbekli Tepe proves one thing. Humans did not wait for civilization. Humans just got bored and started building religions in their spare time. 12. The Jōmon people who invented pottery thousands of years too early. Japan's Jōmon culture said, what if we make pottery? Except no one else in the world had thought of that yet. So they accidentally invented one of humanity's most important technologies. Their flame-style pottery looks like someone tried to sculpt fire and made it permanent. Beautiful. Complex. Decoration levels that make modern graphic designers cry. But here's the twist. They were not farmers. They were not city builders. They were hunter-gatherers with incredible patience. Most civilizations invented pottery because they needed to store grain. These people invented pottery before they had grain, because why not? They lived in pit houses, fished, hunted, made art, and somehow created the longest continuously used pottery tradition on Earth. While other cultures were struggling to figure out tools, Jōmon said, let us make ceramics that look like they belong in a science fiction museum. The timeline does not make sense. But the Jōmon never asked for permission. 13. The Scythians who lived like mythological boss characters. The Scythians were not a civilization. They were a wandering world event. Nomads who rode horses better than most people walk. Warriors covered in gold. archers who could snipe from horseback at full speed. And yes, they tattooed themselves with animal spirits because subtlety was not their thing. Greek writers saw them and immediately assumed they were legendary creatures. When a historian describes you as part demon, part eagle, and part unstoppable chaos, you know you are doing something right. They did not build cities. They built reputations. Their graves are filled with gold so extravagant that it looks like they looted the sun. Gold masks, gold plates, gold jewelry, even gold for their horses. Scythian horses had better accessories than modern influencers. They drank fermented milk. They fought like they were in a fantasy game. They suddenly appeared in places, then vanished again like glitches on the ancient map. The Scythians did not just survive history. They bullied it. 14. The Etruscans who taught Rome everything then quietly disappeared. Rome likes to pretend it invented civilization. Rome did not. Rome copied its homework from the Etruscans. Etruscans built advanced cities. They invented the arch. They built sewage systems. They mastered metalwork. Their women had more rights than most ancient societies would ever allow. Their tombs look like fully furnished apartments. They created the blueprint for Roman religion. They even taught Rome how to govern. Rome basically walked into Etruria like a new student in school and copied everything on the board. But here is the part that makes historians cry. We still cannot read their language, not fully, not confidently. It is a puzzle with half the pieces missing. The Etruscans had style, culture, power. Then they vanished into Rome like sugar in hot tea. Gone. Absorbed. Their identity dissolved, but their influence endured. Rome later bragged about everything. But behind the scenes, the Etruscans were the real architects. 15. The San people who outlived entire civilizations without ever building an empire. The San are one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. Older than Egypt. Older than Mesopotamia. Older than the idea of cities. And they are still here. No monuments. No monuments. No armies. Just incredible survival skills and an understanding of the natural world that makes modern people look like we are trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. They knew every plant, every animal track, every sound the wind could make. They hunted by persistence. They outran prey over impossible distances. They made rock art that shows stories older than recorded history. Civilizations rose and fell. Empires expanded and exploded. Kings crowned themselves and then died dramatically. Meanwhile, the San simply lived, adapted, moved with the land, and survived everything the planet threw at them. It turns out the strongest civilization was the one that never bothered with palaces or pride. Just pure human endurance. 16. The Mycenaeans who accidentally inspired half of Greek mythology. Imagine living in a world where your entire civilization becomes fan fiction. That was the Mycenaeans. They built real palaces, real fortresses, real thrones. And then later, Greek poets turned them into epic superheroes with drama levels that could power an entire streaming platform. These people gave us kings who may or may not have existed, wars that may or may not have happened, and legends that became the foundation of Western storytelling. Mycenaeans walked so Hollywood could run. They used linear B-script. They traded across the Mediterranean. They fortified cities with walls that looked like giants placed them by hand. They worshipped gods who later became the Olympians. And they stored their gold in tombs shaped like giant stone donuts, but then they collapsed. All at once. Like someone unplugged the civilization, their cities burned. Their palaces fell. And the Greeks spent the next centuries mythologizing them into a cinematic universe. The Mycenaeans did not choose immortality. Storytellers chose it for them. 17. The Khmer who built a city larger than medieval Europe just because they felt like it. Angkor was not a city. It was an ancient megastructure. A sprawling network of temples, houses, reservoirs, canals, reservoirs, and more reservoirs because the Khmer were obsessed with water like it owed them money. At its height, Angkor covered more land than most European kingdoms. Imagine ancient engineers doing urban planning that modern city officials would cry trying to replicate. Angkor Wat alone is the size of a small nation. And it is only one temple among dozens. They carved entire mythologies into stone. They aligned it with cosmic patterns. They built a complex hydraulic system that worked like a living organism. Meanwhile, medieval Europe was still trying to flush toilets without flooding the entire house. The Khmer civilization was so advanced it looked like it skipped a few thousand years in the timeline. Then came droughts, war, internal fighting, and the city slowly returned to the forest. But even today, satellites struggle to map all of Angkor because it was just that big. Khmer engineers did not think small. They thought, let us build a nation disguised as a temple complex. 18. The Nabta Playa Stargazers, who built the first known observatory before cities even existed. Before Stonehenge, before Egypt, before almost everything else. There was Nabta Playa, a prehistoric circle of stones in the middle of the Sahara that should not exist. Because the people who built it were not farmers, not city dwellers, not astronomers, just early humans with way too much sky knowledge. They aligned the stones with the solstice. They tracked star movements. They created a calendar, all while living in a region that now looks like a frying pan. This site proves that astronomy did not start with scholars in robes. It started with nomads looking at the sky and saying, I bet we can map that. Imagine the commitment. No metal tools, no writing, no fancy calculations. Yet perfect alignments that match celestial events. Nabta Playa is the moment humanity looked at the stars and said, we see you. And the universe looked back and said, good luck, prehistoric astrophysicists. Who knew? 19. The Hohokam, who built a 500-mile canal system in the middle of the desert. Modern cities struggle to maintain one road. The Hohokam built a water network longer than some countries. In Arizona, where rain shows up once a year and then apologizes for being late. They carved out canals by hand, straight, engineered with perfect gradients so the water flowed without flooding and without stalling. 500 miles of precision. No machines, no metal tools. Just stubborn genius and no fear of blistered hands. They irrigated farms, fed massive communities, built ball courts, created complex trade networks, all from a landscape that looks like the planet turned on hard mode. Then they vanished. Droughts, resource issues, pick your theory. But one thing is certain. The Hohokam did desert engineering that modern planners could only dream of. They turned sand into a civilization. And today water departments still fail at half the things they mastered. 20. The Chavin, who mixed religion, hallucinogens, and terrifying art into one ancient rave. If you walked into the Chavin temple complex, you were not having a normal day. The walls were covered with fanged gods, snakes, and stone heads with hair that looked like lightning. Then the priests would guide visitors through twisted dark corridors designed to disorient them. Blow sacred trumpets that echoed like the world was ending. And sometimes offer psychoactive plants to reveal the mysteries of the universe. Congratulations, you are now in the earliest recorded ritual rave. Chavin engineering included water channels that produced eerie roaring sounds during ceremonies. Think ancient sound effects, but powered by gravity and chaos. Their art style influenced cultures across the Andes. Their religion spread without armies. Their temples looked like puzzle boxes built by an architect who hated straight lines. Chavin civilization was basically an ancient cultural laboratory, where the experiment was, what happens if we mix religion with nightmare animals and loud noises? The answer was influence that outlived the city itself. 21. The Polynesians, who navigated the entire Pacific without maps or metal. If aliens ever visited Earth, this is the civilization they would assume was in charge. The Polynesians explored an ocean the size of a planet, using no written charts, no compasses, no GPS, and a memory training system that makes modern people struggle just thinking about it. They crossed thousands of miles by canoe, reached islands so small they barely appear on maps, managed food, all while modern travelers panic if their phone drops below 10%. They sailed to Hawaii, to places Europeans thought were impossible. And they did it centuries earlier. Their navigation system required a living mental map of the entire Pacific, stored in the mind, passed through teaching rituals. A skill that is still incredibly hard to master today. Polynesians were the astronauts of the ancient world, explorers who treated the ocean like a highway, and never got lost. 22. The Maltese temple builders who constructed megastructures before Egypt even got started. Now this one breaks the timeline. And Malta, a tiny island. In the middle of the sea, a mysterious civilization built stone temples older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than almost every monumental building on Earth. How did they do it? No idea. These structures are massive, precision carved, aligned with the stars, constructed using stones so large that even modern cranes would complain. The temples have doorways shaped like keyholes, shrines, statues, altars, and underground chambers that feel like the settings for ancient boss battles. But here's the twist. We do not know who built them. Their language is gone. Their culture vanished. Their entire civilization dissolved like it was deleted from history. They left behind buildings that look impossible for their time. And then they disappeared without a trace. The Maltese builders were the ancient world's greatest mystery. Proof that humans were capable of incredible things long before logic says they should be. Time for a quick reality check. Because after 22 ancient civilizations that should not exist, the pattern is becoming obvious. Humans were not simply clever. Humans were unhinged. Every single one of these cultures broke a rule, invented something too early, or built something that defies the patience of normal people. Remember the Indus Valley folks casually doing urban planning while modern cities drown in puddles. Remember the Jōmon inventing pottery before anyone had storage needs. Remember the Nabateans carving 5-star resorts into cliffs with no instruction manual. And of course the Polynesians crossing the Pacific with the same confidence people lose the moment their GPS buffer spins. Then there were the underground introverts of Derinque, the alphabet rebels of Phoenicia, the Khmer civil engineers who built an entire continent-sized plumbing system because they were bored, and the Scythians who rode across history looking like side characters from a fantasy saga. It is almost like ancient humanity had two modes. Mode 1, chaos. Mode 2, more chaos. The more you study the ancient world, the clearer it becomes. Humanity was not struggling. Humanity was experimenting, testing every possible idea, inventing religions, inventing navigation, inventing cities, and occasionally inventing giant stone heads just to confuse people in the future. And honestly, it worked. By now, the ancient world is not making sense. So let us speedrun the chaos. You have people carving underground skyscrapers while ignoring sunlight like it is optional. You have desert engineers building canal networks longer than modern highways. You have hunter-gatherers constructing megatemples before inventing farming. You have priests using hallucinogens to talk to animal gods during ceremonies that sounded like thunder inside a stone maze. Civilizations vanished without saying goodbye. Whole cities fell into forests. Stone monuments stared at the stars for thousands of years waiting for someone to notice. Empires rose because someone discovered metal by burning rocks on accident. Humans sailed oceans with no tools, mapped the sky with no math, created alphabets because they did not want to draw complicated bird pictures anymore, and invented pottery because they thought it looked cool. Some groups built pyramids without wheels. Some built observatories without writing. Some built temples with stones heavier than your entire apartment building. And some decided to live inside mountains because ground level was too mainstream. Everything ancient humans did feels like a fever dream. Like they were handed the wrong technology tree and used it anyway. The more you look at history, the more it looks like humanity was trying to speedrun civilization while ignoring the tutorial. Now here's the funny part. We just covered 22 civilizations that should not exist. And this is not even the weird half of history. There are hundreds more ancient cultures that appeared in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing things no one asked for and leaving behind monuments that make archaeologists whisper, "Why would they do that?" into their morning coffee. There are lost cities under jungles, stone circles under lakes, petroglyphs on cliffs that no one can interpret. Whole societies that invented technologies early and then vanished before anyone could take notes. Humanity has always been a chaotic experiment, every generation trying something new. Every culture bending the rules. Every civilization pushing the timeline until it snaps. So now the question becomes, which ancient mystery do you want next? Do you want the civilizations that vanished overnight? The kings who should never have ruled? The inventions that should not exist? The archaeological finds that keep scientists awake at night? Or the myths that turned out to be unsettlingly true? Your choice decides the next deep dive. Your curiosity shapes the next chaos episode. Get ready, because the final line is coming. So here's your final challenge. If 22 impossible civilizations can rise out of deserts, jungles, mountains, and oceans, what is your excuse? Ancient humans carved cities into cliffs, mapped the stars without math, crossed oceans without tools, invented writing because they were bored, and built megastructures that still bully modern architects. And they did all of it without electricity, without machines, without comfort, without tutorials. Just raw stubborn brilliance. So if you want more chaos, more mysteries, more ancient plot twists, then you already know what to do. Hit the button, break the algorithm. Summon the next episode like a digital ritual. Tell me in the comments which part melted your brain. Tell me which civilization shocked you the most. And tell me which forbidden corner of history we should roast next. Because this was not a lesson. This was a warning. Humanity has always been unhinged. And we are just getting started. Take a breath. Because after all that chaos, we need a moment to let the brain catch up. Think about it. These civilizations existed before electricity, before engines, before calculators, before anyone invented the idea of a weekend. Yet they built cities, temples, astronomy tools, plumbing systems, navigation methods, and governments that somehow worked better than many modern ones. Meanwhile today, people panic if the internet loads slowly. People get lost inside shopping malls. People burn water when cooking. And entire offices collapse when Karen from accounting calls in sick. Ancient humans survived droughts, volcanoes, invaders, climate shifts, and total darkness at night. Modern humans cry when their phone brightness is too low. Imagine telling a Nabatean stone carver that people in the future complain about walking 2 minutes to the store. Imagine telling a Polynesian navigator that modern travelers get stressed by airport terminals. Imagine telling a Sumerian scribe that people now struggle to write one email without losing focus. Ancient humanity had patience, strength, creativity, and absolutely no fear. Modern humanity has notifications and confusion. And that is why these civilizations should not have existed. But they did, because ancient people were built different.